Guys, welcome back to the Hawks Zone Rundown, our bi-weekly segment of Pulse of the Hawks with Mookie Alexander from Field Goals. Mookie's going to join us here in just a few minutes. We're going to get into some topics, man. We're leading up to the draft. We are really, really close. I think a lot of people are just like, let's get this over with. Let's get to the draft. I mean, it's here, it's coming, but news we're going to jump into. Obviously, a couple days back, Drew Lock back in a Seahawks uniform. He's back in the building. Signed a 2-year deal. So what does that mean at the quarterback position, especially when we lead into the draft and talk about quarterbacks that, we always talk about, like John doesn't sign a quarterback. So do we kick the can again? Because that quarterback room is getting thick. Then we're going to talk about the official visits, the 30 visits, and we'll let you know who's been on that list, who's been coming through, what that all means. And we're going to touch on a little bit of John's comments from the John Schneider show, his latest show there with the guys, and break that all down for you. And then we're going to finish off with the mock draft. And we're live. So your guys' Q&As, get them in here. Super chats, that's priority. But get them in here because, we're going to pick and choose as we go along here in the show. So Mookie on the other side. But before that, guys, if you haven't done it yet, go down, hit the sub button, sub to the channel, like the video, share the videos. All that helps out. You can also go down, buy us a coffee. That helps as well. So on the other side, Mookie Alexander.
So y'all can sit here and ask me all the questions y'all want to.
Don't you ever talk about me.
Yeah, let's go. It's go time, baby.
Here comes Gino, steps up, takes that shot to the end zone. It is Metcalf, 20.
I'm just about that action, boss.
You about to go get it. You just like to do it.
That's what it is.
Off me.
Nobody in the world can do it.
Are you kidding me? Trying to do that. Pass is caught back in. Jackson, Smith, and Jigba. The circus music moves in. Throw it with Baldwin. Oh my goodness, he caught it. By Leonard Williams.
This is the Hawks Zone Rundown with your hosts, Ryan and Bryce.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Hawks Zone Rundown. Where is he? There he is.
There he is.
Mookie Alexander from the Field Goals joining us on the bi-weekly segment. Mookie, what's happening, man?
It's going well. Obviously, it's still a little too bright for me to use the blur background. I'm not used to all this sun over consecutive days after what it was all right in January, February, but it's sunny and warm, and that's the type of weather I like. Not too hot, not too cool. And draft's right around the corner where we're T-minus 10 days away from figuring out what the Seahawks are going to do at pick 18. And then a whole lot of action is going to really kick off for Seattle on Friday and Saturday because that's where the bulk of their picks are.
Yeah. You might need to get some kind of blackout curtain there because, man, we're leaning into summer. We just talked about it. We got a nice stretch here on the West Coast of weather, so you got to get used to it, man. But let's dive right into it, man. I know we haven't talked about it yet, and we haven't talked about it with you either. The Hawks signed another quarterback. We had an emergency pod when they signed Sam Darnold. We didn't feel like it was quite right to jump on there and have another emergency for this guy. But Drew Lock back in a Seahawks uniform once again. It didn't take long. 2-year deal. The details aren't quite all there. But, now that quarterback room's getting pretty deep. What do you take? What's your take on the signing? Is it something that, hey, John just likes this guy and he had an opportunity to get him back in here? But also, what does it mean as we head into the draft here?
Well, when Locke got signed, I was kind of caught off guard because, one, I forgot Locke was still a free agent. And two, my thoughts with Drew Lock is, if it wasn't clear by now, he is clearly a John Schneider guy. Like he was effusive in his praise about Drew Lock after the Russell Wilson trade. Like, we really liked him in the draft, and then he signed him, kept him around. I mean, he was pumping up Lock just as much, if not more, than Gino the offseason before. And Lock was the actual free agent, not Gino. And now Lock is back, obviously in a backup role. It's 2 years and $5 million, I think. So, look, the $5 million, he earned that with the Giants last year on 1 year. But 2 years, normally you're not in jeopardy of losing out on a roster spot if you're on a 2-year contract. In other words, not in jeopardy of losing a roster spot in year one of your 2-year deal. So to me, this is less about Locke, because in this instance, it is unequivocally clear that he's not going to be the starting quarterback on purpose. But it says to me that Sam Howell is as good as gone. Like, either they're going to trade him or they're going to cut him. It makes no difference because they're going to eat the same money either way. I know that the Packers game was a difficult situation for him, and Ryan Grubb made sure he set the difficulty to 11 with just repeatedly calling pass play after pass play. But it wasn't like Howell did anything impressive in his limited playing time. So the trade didn't work out. It wasn't a high-risk trade or anything, but it's clear to me that Howell's got no future in Seattle. Either he gets traded or he gets released, but it's going to be Darnold and Locke. What it means for the draft, I don't think that it precludes Seattle from drafting a quarterback anyway. It just means that you've got Darnold, you've got Locke. Obviously, there were one too many Sams in the quarterback room, but that other quarterback could still be, and again, sort of like how we viewed Howell. That quarterback could be a late-round pick like Kyle McCord or Will Howard, competing with Locke for a second job, or QB2, or somebody that's maybe would push for a starting quarterback position. I don't think that's going to happen. In other words, I don't think that they will draft Milroe or Dart or anybody in the first or second round. So it's not like Locke is like familiar with this brand new offense. I mean, he's going to a new offensive coordinator again. He's familiar with the facilities. He's familiar with the stadium and all that. But it's not like Seattle just running it back from the Shane Waldron days. So, he is who he is. Locke is not a very good starting quarterback, but he is at least a capable backup, as we saw with him 2 seasons ago. So I guess welcome back, Drew.
Yeah, no, Mookie, I agree with you with the fact that you're talking about bringing in a guy that you can see win you a football game if you need in a pinch. Like we saw him do that in the Philadelphia Eagles game when Geno was out. And after watching Sam Howell last year, and I get the circumstances, it didn't instill that confidence. Like, oh, if Geno had gone and been out for multiple games, were we going to be able to beat Minnesota the following week and play in that game and be, in that game for that, kind of situation? And that's where I look at this and I go, okay, 1, Drew Lock is a John Schneider guy. 2, you're getting a guy that's somewhat familiar with this style of play, at least with the play actions, the under center, the boot game, because he's been in the Shane Waldron offense, which is a derivative of this, very far down the line and kind of off to the left, and it's like the unforgotten stepchild over in the far side because we don't really want to know that it exists. But I think this has more to do with their lack of confidence in Sam Howell as a actual backup quarterback. I think they're going to try and trade him, probably either it's draft night or something, and recoup a late round pick if they can in this year's draft or next year's draft, just to get something back for it. And what that also tells you is they probably sat down and Kubiak and his, staff and the new QB coach and everything went over and looked at the film and said, can we get this guy to work in this system? Like, is it going to work? And they probably realized it's not. And that's why you see Drew Lock's deal for 2 years and not just a 1-year deal. And I agree too. It doesn't deter them from taking a quarterback, but now there's no stress to do it. It's like if someone falls in your lap that you like say a Will Howard, who I would bang the table for if he fell to them somehow in that, late second or, early third area that they've got picks potentially, then yeah, I would take a swing at a Will Howard type of guy. But I don't think it now puts Seattle in a situation where they're hyper focused on it. They've got 2 quarterbacks they feel comfortable with, and Drew and Sam Darnold, I should say more specifically. I can't say that until one of the Sams is no longer on the roster. But I think it just gives them some more assurances that they're not stressing and putting that kind of pressure on themselves to take somebody because they don't have someone they're comfortable behind Sam Darnold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I should note that one aspect of this that we haven't discussed much is, are the Seahawks willing to roster 3 quarterbacks?
Yes.
Because they very rarely have done that under Schneider. In fact, most teams do not roster 3 quarterbacks. They stash the third one on the practice squad, and if something happens to the other 2, then you get a practice squad elevation. QB3s are generally not needed very often. But could there be an exception for a quarterback that they really like? Because let's face it, Locke is not a long-term commitment. Like if year 1, he sticks around. Year 2, he could be gone. Sam Darnold, he could be your long-term option if it all goes well this year, but he's still on a 3-year deal. Yeah. So there are ways for him, for Seattle to cut bait if it doesn't go well. But I think that Schneider has if anything, might have a greater eye on what's going on in 2026 draft, which is on paper, and I stress on paper, much stronger, but there's a whole lot going on as far as who could declare, who could have their stock rise, who could have their stock fall. But there also might be the reality that they might not be in position to get any of the supposed top quarterbacks that they would truly like. Like you could see Dart going higher than expected. I think that Cam and Shedeur are going to go in the top 10. And now you got this new wrinkle with what the New Orleans Saints might have to do because Derek Carr got hurt.
Yeah.
Or somehow got hurt and he might miss the whole season. So Darnold is your starter. Locke is the backup you're familiar with. And then QB3 is really to be determined because I don't see a future for Howell here. Jaron Hall, I mean, he's going to be fighting for a roster spot. Like there might be some things that people liked about him in college and his limited playing time in Minnesota, but he's fighting for a roster spot. So certainly, if there's anybody whom I believe is totally out of the picture for Seattle, is Tyler Shuck, because there's no point in taking a 26-year-old quarterback with Locke and Darnold on the roster.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, obviously with you talk about Sam Darnold, it's kind of an interesting thing too, because he is, a 3-year deal, but if he sort of solidifies himself, because I think they think he could be the guy. Like, especially the season he had in Minnesota, I think all signs point to they want to compete, and they still think he's more than just a bridge. Now, if he takes off, then you work an extension after year 2, right? Because if he does take off, then that's going to get pretty expensive if you kind of wait too long. But yeah, man, I think I like it's a good move, like you guys mentioned. If he goes down, you're a little more confident in that backup spot than you were with Sam Howell. But hey, talking about the 30 official, what number? How many guys have they had in the visit? About half of that so far?
6, I'd say 17 guys, because I'm looking at my list and Kyle Williams was, I think, today or yesterday he came in. So they're up to 17 guys total now for visits.
Right. Well, hey, Mookie, you're taking a look at that list. We've all seen the list. We're going to
I'll
dive
pop it up on the screen here for everyone that's watching to also see as well, because we've got a
sure. Yeah. Here. So anybody here that sort of jumps out at you, maybe a surprise that you didn't think that a position wise, especially you look at the offensive linemen, you definitely have a few in here, but none of the big name guys that we've mentioned. Saying a lot of our mock drafts or just talking about potential at 18. Any surprises there for you, or you kind of like not putting too much into it? What's your thoughts? What jumps out at you?
Well, they're certainly looking around for offensive linemen, and it's across the board. So like somebody like Jared Wilson could be the first center taken, depending on how you view Gray Zabel. Like he could be the first obvious, undoubted center to take in this year. Or it could be Bryce Cavaldu from Kansas, and he's probably going to be like a day 3 pick. So that's just from the offensive lineman. And then Dylan Fairchild, I think, might be a day 3 option. So not all of them are all the 30 visits. That is, they're not all going to be like guaranteed Seattle's radar. They got deep interest because other teams also have 30 visits. And there are some players who are realistically not going to be touching the Seahawks because other teams are ahead of them in the order, or by the time Seattle picks, there'll be other picks in between 18 and 50, and they're going to come off the board. But the wide receiver news, I think, is most interesting lately with Kyle Williams, because Kyle Williams has become a high riser as far as his draft stock, whereas Ted McMillan, he is divided opinion quite a bit. Well, the watch film thing, I think that's overblown. I mean, I don't like to hear that, but guess what? He's not the first nor the last, and he was a freshman when he said it.
Yeah,
there are probably a lot of dudes who don't like to watch film, but they got to do it. They don't always live and breathe football, but he's a damn good player. I prefer Jaden Higgins personally to McMillan, and I think McMillan could be really good, but I like the idea of Seattle trying to get another big-bodied receiver. And I say that because, and I wrote this up the other day, I wrote it up as if I didn't just aggregate it, but Matt Miller of ESPN said that Seattle was expected to look for a big-bodied receiver, and then he brought up McMillan's name. And the reason why I bring up Miller specifically is not because of his really, really poorly aged take on the 2012 Seahawks draft, but because he seemingly has some intel. Because last year he hinted, Seattle could be going for a defensive tackle, and Byron Murphy, the floor is 16. And guess what? That was the floor, and he went at 16. And then in 2023, he mentioned at the very, there were some other options, but he mentioned Devin Witherspoon at a time when not a lot of people were thinking necessarily that Seahawks would break from their tendencies and take Witherspoon at number 5. So usually those things are phrased in a way to not give away the whole game. Just sort of like when Schefter and those other reporters like say, breaking news, blah, 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 is strongly considering taking this player, 5 minutes before they actually pick. So I think wide receiver is still going to be a high priority for the Seahawks because, and I don't remember if I mentioned on the last Pulse of the Hawks, but I'll mention it again if I have. They got 2 receivers under contract in 2026. Jackson Smith-Njigba and Cooper Kupp. And if Cooper Kupp looks washed and he gets injured again, that's probably going to be 1 receiver under contract in 2026 because Jake Bobo, as an undrafted player, is only on a 3-year contract, not 4. So you have to still be building there and finding options for your long-term. And let's face it, Kupp probably not a long-term option, even if he plays well this year. I don't know how many more good years you'll have left. And then MVS, I mean, he's here for a year. He's going to be like Marquise Goodwin. He's here for 1 season and then gone. So you got to have other options. And looking at the top of the order, certainly Seattle has got options there with McMillan and Higgins. This is not a class filled with super behemoth 6'4", 6'5" receivers, but that's fine. I think the one exception they would make is Colston Loveland because he could be like that. He could basically function as a big body receiver, but he's nominally a tight end. So Mason Taylor is also a name that's also caught my eye, suggesting that they're looking for a big body pass catcher, whether it's receiver or tight end, because Taylor would fit that mold perfectly to me.
Yeah, no, receiver is something for me, Mookie, even in my mock drafts I've been doing lately, where I think there's a real chance at, I know everyone is going to want Seattle to take a lineman at 18. I don't know if Seattle's going to do that unless someone that really falls to them that they have super conviction about, because John Schneider made a comment, and I know we'll talk about his comments in a little bit here, but he made a comment on his most recent show about at 18, we are expecting the guy we pick to come in and be a starter. Yeah. That's what they're expecting at pick 18. So when I look at that and it's like, okay, yeah, you could take an O-lineman potentially at that point, but is that guy going to come in and be a starter right away? Is that what you're getting in that value? Or are you better off maybe going after a receiver like a McMillan or, an Mbuka or a Golden at 18 or even a Loveland, where we're talking about a guy that's going to play a lot in that first season for them. And I know people think, well, there's Cooper Kupp and there's JSN, so there's already 2 receiver spots taken, and this offense may be more 12 personnel. I understand that, but I don't know if Cooper Kupp's going to be in on all the formations in 12 personnel. I think there's a chance that they draft a kid like McMillan or Mbuka or Golden. That guy's going to take some of Cooper Kupp's reps just to manage his load because of, like you said, his injury history he's had. That's a huge part of this equation. So I think receivers definitely more of a need, and I could see them taking 2 guys for sure. The one thing for me is, when I look at some of these visits here, there's not a lot of guys that are really top 2 round guys, in that top half of the draft. A lot of them are guys that we've kind of figured, Chase Lund and, Jackson Slater, and some of these guys are more that mid-round kind of area. The one that's still interesting for me, and he's the only one that's had this so far, a combine and a top 30 visit, is Nick Emanwari, the safety out of South Carolina, which I know everyone was enamored with because everyone's saying he's Cam Chancellor 2.0. But that's the only one that's interesting to me because he's the only one that's had a double back-to-back kind of thing, which is usually from Seattle a pretty significant sign. The other thing with these visits, and I don't think maybe a lot of people realize that, they use these for the potential of signing or trading for these guys in a couple of years. If they know they're not going to draft them, they still want the intel on these guys. So if they go to acquire them at a later point, they have something to go back on and be like, oh yeah, he came in for a top 30 visit. And we've seen that with Seattle in the past, where they brought guys in that were on top 30 visits 2-3 years later, depending on what their situation is at that point through their career.
Definitely. And again, everybody's got their 30 visits. They're all doing the tour of the United States, meeting from team to team. And usually what happens, at least with the Seahawks, is 1 or 2, sometimes 3 guys have an official 30 visits and then get drafted by the Seahawks. So that is kind of your hint right there. Or they become undrafted free agents. So like Carlton Johnson, I think last year, obviously he didn't make the team. He was a 30 visits, as was one of the undrafted off. Sundell might have actually been a 30 visit, but I'm not entirely sure. But whatever the case, that's, in other words, don't take 30 visits as gospel. Like, okay, this is their draft board. Sometimes you're doing your due diligence, like they did. They met with every quarterback 2 years ago. The Stroud, Bryce Young, they met with all of them. They didn't draft any of them. So for what we have so far, I also noticed no linebackers, meaning inside linebackers. But this is frankly not a deep linebacker draft class, and I'd be shocked, other than Jahad Campbell, if any of these linebackers went like within the top 60 picks. Maybe the UCLA guy, but it's not a deep position there. Chase Luntz also is just a name to keep an eye on because of his ties to Christian Haynes. And the fact that Luntz could be a guard, but he was also a tackle. And in fact, he was exclusively a tackle at UConn. So that's the connections also, I think, matter to some degree too, like familiarity with players already on your roster.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see at 18 because I don't think he takes an O-line either, unless it's something just falls to 18 and it's one of those run up to the podium type things. I'm just in the spot where I wouldn't be surprised if they do take a receiver at 18. Like I think there's a really high possibility, just how we mentioned. Cup is such a gamble. Like we all love him when he's on. Like he could be a total surprise, but I don't think they're putting a ton of stock into that either. I think you gotta be ready for the future here at that position. It's just gonna creep up on you quickly. And like you said, a couple of guys they brought in, mixed reviews on either side with Tet, but big body receiver. So as far as just kind of plug and play in a guy and saying, okay, here's your new big body guy. Obviously he has different intangibles than DK Metcalf, but he sure does some things that DK was criticized for here as far as, high point in footballs. And, Tet seems like he kind of is that guy that can kind of do that a little more, but, doesn't have that flat out DK speed, but a player that, he's one of those guys where you kind of look at him like, man, he's got some unique intangibles. And if you're looking at Seattle, man, plug and play. But yeah, it's going to be interesting, man. I think a lot of people would like to see them go O-line at 18 and plug a guy in there. But, and we're going to get to it right now because we'll get to it in a second, but about John Schneider's comments, John did talk O-line and talk how it is that cohesive unit and stuff like that. I'm still in the belief that I think he's still along those lines of that developmental, let's get as many guys in this building and develop. And especially with this new coaching staff, I think he really believes, I think he's believing in the Benton and Kubiak, and now with McDonald running the ship. And I really believe that's kind of, I wouldn't be surprised if that's what we kind of see. Guys that we talk about in this list, they brought in and you're kind of going that route. I don't know what you guys think of that.
The one thing I'll say about McMillan that's interesting before we just get to John's part here, but you got to remember too, you also have, or John and them have a special resource in the Pacific Northwest that might give them even more insight into McMillan, which is maybe why Seattle's got a little bit more interest in him. And that's Jed Fish, the head coach of the University of Washington. He recruited McMillan to Arizona. So that's a huge thing for them to be able to just go over to UW and be like, hey, what are the comments about him not wanting to watch film? What was his work ethic like? Like all those kind of things are huge because there's that connection, as we've seen throughout the years, between UW and the Seattle Seahawks, and the level of respect there when it's come to Seattle looking at UW players potentially and what they're going to do. They get a really good intel base from that group. So I think that's a huge thing for them. And maybe that's why McMillan is potentially, you've heard more rumors about Seattle being interested, is they maybe really like him because of what they've heard from Jed Fish and that coaching staff that know him so well from the 3 years and recruiting him to Arizona.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's something I hadn't considered. And Fish has worked with Seattle before, I think in the 2010 or 2011 season.
Yep.
So yeah, there are ties between Fish and Schneider to consider there. But yeah, I mean, a lot of things are on the table. And also, before we get to the Schneider comments, Ravel from East Carolina also being one of the 30 visits. Again, doesn't mean he's going to be selected. He certainly fits the classic Seahawks cornerback mold. I'm a little weary because of the ACL tear, but I mean, he's a hell of a story given his path towards becoming a top draft pick. I said it last time. Their confidence in Reek Woolen and the cornerback room as a whole, I think, is directly tied to how early they want to draft a cornerback this year. And
Yeah.
if they want to draft one in the first, or well, probably not first, but if they want to draft one in the second round, I think that's like a message sent to Reek specifically, and even to Josh Jobe. But Jobe's on a $1 million contract, so it's more about Woolen's on in a contract year. If some things are going south a little bit, or he ends up moving on, they have a backup in place instead of waiting for somebody to leave and then trying to fix the problem the next year.
Well, talking about the Schneider comments, he was raving about Devin Witherspoon. And they talked about how these guys are getting paid now in college. How does that change these guys coming into the NFL? And John's basically saying, there's some good things about that, because you can kind of see who really loves football and who really is like, yeah, you know what, it's a job for me. And you can tell when a guy's passionate about the game, when you already got money, but you're still playing because you're just an ultra competitor. And John made a point about that. Made a point about Devin Witherspoon. How this guy's just an absolute beast, picks everybody up, and the way he was talking, it's like, I wish I had everybody on the team like him. So didn't mention Reek. Because he's a completely different mentality player. I think cornerback's definitely on the table in this draft too, because I don't see them paying him. We've talked about it on this show quite a bit. Like I would be shocked if they gave that guy an extension. So. Personality, we just talked about Tet and the film, and they bring these guys in. These guys are investments. These guys are huge investments. So what they want, the overall guy. So now that these guys are getting paid out of school, you kind of got to feel like, okay, who's really into playing this game, especially when you get money thrown at you. You get an extension like we talked about. Reek could be in that $90 million range. Now how is he going to act? Hey, I got paid. We know what Devin's going to be like. When they give Devin a bunch of money, it's going to be the exact same dude. You don't have to worry about him. So, that was interesting when I would listen to that, just how he raved about him. So.
Yeah, and then McDonald is also at the league meeting, also raved about Joe. It's like Woolen has the talent. He's been mostly a very good player. It's just that his lows are head scratchers, and I know the shoulder thing bothered him in 2023, but it's just getting benched, albeit temporarily, consecutive seasons, for one for on field and one for off the field. That's the kind of thing that you've always got to pay attention to. It's like he's got the physical talents. He's got very, very good ball skills. He's one of the best in passes defensed. He had 4 picks last season. So he has those abilities. He's very good man to man. Just sometimes he can get a little bit undisciplined. Witherspoon can get undisciplined at times too, but you're never going to knock his effort. Like you're never going to knock Witherspoon's effort. And it'd be interesting to see what happens with Witherspoon's contract, because he mostly plays on the slot, but obviously you can play both ways. You can be a slot, you can be outside, you can be a boundary corner. But the difference between getting paid as a slot versus getting paid as an outside corner, I don't know if you guys saw the Jalen Petrie contract that Houston just gave him. Stingley is on $30 million or something like that, $30 million a year with 80 some odd million guaranteed, all but 1 million. And Petrie's on 13 something million a year, just like Tyler Gordon over in Chicago. So that is going to be a fascinating bit to monitor. But if Reek balls out and is all pro season, then hell yeah, extend it. But if it's anything short of that, then there have to be some considerations there. But there was another thing that Schneider mentioned with as far as the quarterback comments on his show, be careful when you hear people say this isn't a great draft. And I think he's talking about the quarterback position specifically. That feels almost like gamesmanship. It isn't a great draft in terms of 5-6 guys are going to go in the first round, but we might see a wider spread of round 1 to round 2 to round 5 and 6 options, where as opposed to that cluster in round 1, and then I think Rattler went the 5th. So there's a big difference where okay, you've got these 13 draft eligible quarterbacks, and half of them are in round 1, and then the other half are in day 3. That's a big gap you're talking about, if you put it on a number line or something. So this year it's a lot different. It's not filled with on paper, potential superstar quarterbacks as potential franchise quarterbacks, but you have options really in every round where it's more evenly spread out.
Yeah, and Mookie, talking to John Schneider's comments from his show, that was one that really stuck out to me, along with his one about pick 18, and that, being a starter level player. That's what we're looking for at 18, which that for me, John saying that's one thing I've kind of enjoyed about this John Schneider show over the past few years is this year he seems to have been a little bit less tight about information and let things slide a little bit more this year on stuff that's going on. And, listening to him talk even about the O-line and how, having the guys that they have in here and Rico Dennison, which is what they call him, and JB and John Benton, how much that's helping with their alignment of what they're looking for in the O-line and the developmental factor, which, to be honest, I think it's something they have truly missed for a very long time in Seattle, is having true development of their players. Like, I was on the German Seahawker show this past weekend and they were asking questions about that. And I said, if you go through Seattle's track record of offensive line coaches since Pete Carroll had been here, now over to Mike McDonald, the one thing about last year's group in particular, Scott Huff and Ryan Grubb, was there was no identity to the running game in Seattle at all. We didn't know if we were zone and we didn't know if we were power and gap, but at least with our previous O-line coaches, you go back to when Pete got here with Alex Gibbs, even though he didn't stay on for the whole year, they were a zone-based run team. Then they had Tom Cable come in and it just kind of carried on that wide zone. Then you went from that to Mike Solari, who was much more of the power gap, and you saw the acquisitions of Mike Upati and DJ Fluker. Yep. And then you saw Andy Dickerson come in, and they were trying to switch it back over with some of their guys. They brought J.R. Sweezy back. That never really clicked, I don't think. And then you saw last year's debacle, which was, we don't know what we are. We're just going to throw stuff at the wall and hope it sticks. I think now that you have an offensive line group and coaching staff in here that's a line that understands this philosophy of what Clint Kubiak wants to do, and it's not like they've only dabbled in it where it's been like, I've been in it for a year as a coach. I kind of get it. No, we're talking about guys that have done this for years. I think that's going to bode so well for how they identify prospects that are going to fit into this class. And that was the other thing with John was saying, how much more aligned what the coaches want and what the coaches see versus the scouts is aligned this year than it was last year, I think, for them in some areas.
Yeah, as long as they're not chasing trends, because that's what it felt like with some of the recent hires. Like, you got to do it smartly and do it your way. And the other bit with Schneider's comments about this is it's still beware of calling this not a great draft for quarterbacks or whatever. The reason why I say gamesmanship is if there was ever a year where he might trade down because he hasn't done it in 5 years. Pittsburgh, I mean, they've got Shador's not going to go all the way down to 21, I think. But I mean, I think they had Milroe in for a visit, so they could very well move up. In other words, if there are any teams that are thinking about quarterback late first or their early second, and Seattle wants to trade down, they might do that. And in turn, if they take an offensive lineman with their first pick, I think it would be through a trade down, because I don't think that they would take Zabel, for example, at 18. I know somebody in the comments mentioned take Tyler Booker at 18. It's the scheme fit that concerns me. I mean, I don't doubt that he is an absolute physical beast when you get him, hat on a hat, he's just mauling people. But that doesn't necessarily make him ideal for what Benton wants to run. But still, if you trade down from 18 to 21 or 21 to the late first or the early second, Zabel could very well still be there. And that's and you might acquire extra picks along the way. So with 5 picks in the top 100 and 2 right next to each other, almost 50 and 52 in the second round, he hasn't traded down a lot in the upper part of the draft over the last few years, even including second and third round. But in a draft where the meat of the talent, just metaphorically speaking, the meat of the talent is in day 2 and the early bits of day 3, this could be one of those drafts where Schneider kind of turns back the clock a little bit to trying to stockpile picks in that middle portion of the draft.
Yeah, I think it's going to be super interesting to see. I mean, the 5 picks in 100. I mean, that's a lot of ammo to work with, right? So, we'll see. When we get to a couple super chats here.
Throw them up, Ryan.
Then we can dive back into some other stuff, and let's start out with Kevin Kimball, super chat here. We appreciate that, Kevin. Kevin coming in here. Bryce, this is for you. How much do you believe Kubiak's scheme will help our O-line over the issues last year? Love the coverage in Mississippi. Go Hawks. Appreciate it, Kevin, all the way down to Mississippi there. Go Hawks. Yeah, Bryce, what do you think?
So it's interesting. The one thing Clint Kubiak's system does that I think is really going to help the O-line is the play action in the boot game. They don't just drop straight back in this offense. They don't do what we saw last year, which with Ryan Grubb was, we're going to drop back 45 times straight back. We're just going to drop back in the pocket and hope things go well. You're going to see this pocket move, which with Sam Darnold is something that he did with Minnesota, and you saw it help to his benefit. And it stresses the defense because you're not now aiming for a singular point in the backfield to meet the quarterback at. It's constantly moving. You can't take all the same angles all the time. You don't know when it's coming. So that will help out the O-line because it gives them a slight advantage of knowing the direction that this play is going to go in and be able to get there first and get themselves set in. So I think when you look at Clint Kubiak's scheme, that's where it's going to help the O-line the most, is especially in the pass game, the pocket moving and not being set in the same spot all the time. And for the run game, I believe with his run scheme, the one thing it offers a lot of is it looks similar, but then it's not the same play. And that's one thing for a defense that makes things challenging, is when it all looks relatively the same by formation and what you're doing, but somehow all of a sudden you think they're running zone outside to the right, but they've really set you up for a counter or a cutback coming off of it into the middle of the field, and it becomes an inside zone. You get D linemen, linebackers that over pursue, and you get these massive cutback lanes, which is something we were kind of used to with Marshawn here in the early, LOB era with Tom Cable, is the amount of times Marshawn would hit that backside cutback lane and just scoot right down the middle. And so that's where I think you're going to see that with Kubiak's scheme. So Kevin, to answer your question, I think it will help. They're still going to have to get players in here that fit the scheme, that work within the scheme and coach them up. But overall, the fact that this scheme will allow the offensive line to have, let's just say, not be stuck in a situation where the defense knows exactly where they're going to be all the time.
Man, the day I see a run week and fake week again, after that nonsense from last year where they were basically giving tells damn near every other play action. Okay, you run this way, but you never play action this way. At least you have somebody who understands NFL defenses. And again, I'm not dumping Grubb as if he's never going to be a good coordinator, but at the moment, he ain't ready, and that's why he's back at Alabama. And Clint Kubiak has been in the NFL long enough, whether through his actual coaching experience or being around his dad, to figure out what's what. And yes, it is a staple of the Shanahan and McVay offenses. It looks similar, but it's not the same play. And even basketball coaches like Dan Hurley, the UConn coach in men's college, he's talked about trying to run basketball sets that look the same, but they actually aren't. And, it's something that it has befuddled Seattle's defense over the years. And it's about time that the offense start doing that in its own favor.
The other thing I'll add to this about Clint Kubiak's scheme is if there are issues and there's issues that need to be worked out, talk about a guy that's got a wealth of information to go to in his dad and even Mike Shanahan, who have run this scheme for eons and know it inside and out and know how defenses want to attack certain things on it. To have that kind of, knowledge behind you going, hey, yeah, if I'm having a struggle point, I can go to this if we're really struggling with something. It's something we didn't have last year with Ryan Grubb. It's not something we had with Shane Waldron as his OC. We had it a little bit with Brian Schottenheimer, but nowhere near to the level of extensive detail as we do with Clint Kubiak because of the lineage he comes from.
Yeah. It must be nice to just, I don't want to say, shit the bed, but I will. And then, you just, you're not good enough in the NFL. Come back home, Ryan. We got a spot for you for a couple million a year. So, whatever, have a little tryout run and then back to where you're comfortable. Let's get, it's like the Bryce mailbag here today. Hey, Bryce. Is Desmond Watson growing on you yet?
Oh, Desmond Watson. He's interesting. I would take a seventh round flyer UDFA on the guy and bring him in and see, because he does have some fullback potential. Never seen a individual that large move at a decent,
Dude.
amount for a guy that should be on the D line playing fullback. But yeah, if you were going to take a UDFA swing or a late seventh round pick on a guy and you're just throwing it and seeing what you get, sure. I just don't know where he fits. I don't see a development in his, defensive line sets or anything like that to make me think, oh yeah, we can plug him in on the D line and we're going to have, some sort of presence there at all. But he's an interesting guy. Like, he gives me the D line to conversion to fullback kind of thing they've done, gives me Will Tukawafu vibes of when Seattle had him in here for a bit. But Tukawafu was a bit of a better athlete, I think, at the end of the day.
Yeah, and Tukawafu's not 464 pounds. This would be
exactly.
Tukawafu. I mean, the idea of him being a fullback, his back couldn't be any more full. I mean, this is a big boy. So yes, in the interest of memes and content, hell yeah, let's go get Watson. This is the only time I'll say let's go get a D Watson, because I sure as hell don't want Deshaun.
Yeah,
Devin Watson, yeah, absolutely, that'd be funny. It's the same thing with Ty Robinson. I mean, if we're not going to try Byron Murphy, we did it one time with Grubb. But maybe that's the solution. Byron Murphy, in addition to your increased roles this year, time to do some lead blocker stuff. It's like the fullback that Kubiak was looking for was here the whole time.
Yeah. Real quick, I just want to touch on a D. You say D Watson. I'm just going to sit here and admit, because I'll admit sometimes, and I was banging on the table for D Watson after the Russ move. I was like, hey, let's just bring him in, man. Just go from Russ to Watson. We're going to be good. The biggest thing was, well, we know what the biggest thing was, but that stupid contract was just, was just like, wow, okay, you can have them. Everybody else is out of the running. We're not going to get into all the other stuff, but that was right in the middle of like the allegations. So we weren't really sure yet. So I was like, hey, you know what? Could be a fit, but I'm not going to hide behind stuff. We all say stuff. I mean, look, he didn't play ball. He was out of ball for 2 years before that. So, I mean, before that, he was arguably a top, what would you guys think? Top 6 QB, 7
when
QB?
he was in Houston on I would say, like, when we made the trade that year for Dwayne Brown and he came into started to play, and the stuff he was doing, you could see the trajectory of him being a top 5 guy,
right?
And then it just all fell apart. I don't think he ever reached being a top 5 NFL quarterback. I'd say he got on the cusp of being a top 10.
Right.
And then obviously the whole scandal and everything everything that kind of occurred afterwards, I think has completely derailed him.
Yeah, Justin Tucker decided to follow suit, but we're not going to TMZ it here.
Apparently.
Here's what we get into here. Ian Victor.
He goes, in my opinion, I say don't draft a QB in this draft. Build up the foundation on both sides of the ball, then go all in on a potential Drew Allar next year.
Well, if they build up their foundation on both sides of the ball, they will not be getting Drew Allar.
They will not be getting Drew Allar. No.
They might be picking 29, 28. We hope.
Yeah, Drew Allar would have to have a down year for him to not be, I was a skeptic of him, but I've come around enough to think that he might get picked highly next season if all goes well this year. Yeah, if they don't draft a quarterback this year, then surely they would try in 2026. It just feels like every time they're ready to do something, they trade for somebody else or they sign somebody else. So it's not as absolutely important. And the fact that they signed Darnold in the first place, I don't think made it as necessary. If they traded Geno and then didn't sign Darnold, then we're not having this debate.
Well, I think we start debating maybe a Jackson Dart or something at this point. You know what I mean? But I think that's like Bryce and I talked about a lot. Like, I think once Darnold got signed, like it's been such on the back burner for us because there's so many other needs right now, right? And then you look at even next year, I think it's such a wait and see approach because Sam could be a guy. Like we're not going to sit here and be like, hey, he could be a top 3 guy in the league. Few guys are. But if you have a
top
solid,
15.
Totally, if you have a top 12 to 15 quarterback, you're going to extend that guy. And then there's no need to be like, well, we need to go get this next guy. And we bang on the table for John to draft a quarterback all the time. But A, it's not that easy. And B, how many great quarterbacks are out there? Especially in today's game, how many guys would you be banging on the table to be like, give them big time money? There's only a handful, really, right? That you'd really be like, that's an automatic. So I think it's still we look at 26 and be like, oh, it's a better draft for QBs. Like you said, Mookie, we're building a foundation, and we talk about the coaching staff we're bringing in here. We expect to compete and be a good team. So if that's the case, we're going to be in the same position where we're like, well, we're not bad enough to get those top two guys. Or so, I just think they're betting on Sam to do what he did last year and just progress and be like, look, he was in bad situations when he came to the league. He's maturing. He's been with some good coaches now, good systems. Maybe you got some. So let's hope. I think that's a plan.
So here's one from MWM, who's always in here. I'm wondering if Howe will be used as a trade up and a round 2 chip on day 2 draft night. Potentially, yeah. Like if they want to move up from 50, do you package him with your, pick 50 to go up? You might be able to do that because there were some teams interested in him. And if someone doesn't get one of the quarterbacks they want, say they miss out on a Dart or they miss out on a Milrow, and they don't get him, there is a potential that could work. Because, again, the one thing in Sam Howell's favor here, he has got quite a few starts. He's got a full NFL season of starting, and he's still only 24 years old. He's still younger than Tyler Shuck, who's coming into the NFL this year as a 26-year-old. So you never know. It's a possibility. I won't shoot that and say, hey, no, there's no way. It could be a way that Seattle's looking at it now with having Drew Lock under contract. We got
used in a trade, yes. Used in a trade up on round two. I don't think, depending on any pick swaps, his value could not have possibly appreciated after last season. So I can see him being used in a trade. Same with Noah Fant, incidentally, but we're not really talking about him. Like Howell and Fant are kind of the two on my radar for possibly getting dealt on one of the 3 draft nights. But yeah, I don't think that he would be involved in a round 2 because I don't think any team is that desperate enough to want him that high.
So Here's Corey in here. He says, give me Booker still at 18. You know what? If Booker to me, I think he'll, like, again, if Seattle picks him, it's hard for me to get the words out here because I really like Booker. Like, if Booker were on Seattle's line, he's the alpha. That's what he's got going for him from Bama and everything. He's the alpha. Very much like when we drafted Jaron Reed on the defensive line, he was an alpha at Alabama. We don't really have that in Seattle. My concern is the same thing you mentioned, Mookie, is just does he fit this scheme properly? Because there's more guys in this scheme in Seattle that I think fit what they want to do than there are the guys that don't. And when I think of, a guy that doesn't have great foot speed and stuff, think of Anthony Bradford, and I go, does he even fit this scheme going forward?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, to me, Donovan Jackson is, and we'll get to the mock draft later on, but like Donovan Jackson to me is the ideal offensive line pick for Seattle, even more so than Zabel because he's played a higher level of competition and he succeeded both at tackle and guard. Just having that little versatility. I mean, Zabel's got his own versatility, but like Booker is just guard, that's it.
Yeah.
So with Jackson, his success as a tackle and the fact that he is usually a guard, like that's who would be on my radar. So MWM had made a comment earlier that I can't find, but it was mentioning taking Donovan Jackson. If Seattle were to trade down, I think that they would trade down for Jackson.
Yes.
So like, and if he goes in the late first, like if they trade down to 27 and take him, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. It's like, oh, you overdraft him by what, 10 picks? I mean, he's going to go within that, like 25.
He'll go before pick 50.
Yeah, he's probably going to be gone before 50. So like, I'd rather that than trading up. So I think that's, that's an option there.
Yeah, guys, a few more. We're going to take a few more Q&As. Here's one more. So guys, get them in if you got them, because we're going to jump into a mock draft. You can still fire out the comments, but we're going to be diving deep into the mock. So get them in now for the next few minutes, and we'll try to get to a couple more. Here's a super chat. We appreciate it. I'd rather be flying X-Wing. It's been in the chat a few times with us. Appreciate that. Someone online updated Madden to put Kupp and Darnold on the Hawks. We went to the Super Bowl twice and won once. Book your tickets now.
Yeah, it just shows you how wildly unrealistic EA Sports tends to be with their.
Hey, we can all hope and dream, Mookie. Don't crush the dreams already.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the unrealistic part is we only won once.
Right.
You got there twice. Got to go twice. Got to win it twice.
All right. So
any
that
more
being
here?
said,
You got any more? Or we
I think we're good. Let's hop into the mock. and we'll get to a mock draft. And then, but before that, everyone just make sure, guys, don't forget, like, subscribe, click the notification button down below. Head on over to Field Goals as well. That's where you're going to find most of our podcasts as well. Mookie and the group over there do fantastic work. So that's where a lot of our stuff is going as well. And also, guys, if you haven't already, join our membership program. You get exclusives to videos before they get dropped to the public. There'll be other perks coming out and such with the program, and you'll get stuff in regards to our store and some other cool things that'll kind of happen for you guys. So make sure you guys check out the membership program. It's linked on our YouTube page, so make sure you guys go there and check it out as well. But with that being said, yeah, let's jump into a mock, guys, and we're going to use the new ESPN Analytics Simulator because it's one of the ones I've kind of gotten familiar with and really like. So,
all right, let's hit it.
All right, so the first one we're going to do here is we'll do one without trading. We'll just take and pick where we are. So I think that's the best way to do it to start, just so we stick and pick. All right, so let's see how this is going to go off the top. I found it's been pretty accurate as of late. The cool thing about this simulator, though, is it actually gives you the predictability of the player actually being there. So pick one: Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Ashton Genty went to the Patriots, Mason Graham to the Jaguars, Shedeur Sanders to the Raiders, Jalen Walker to the Jets, Will Campbell to the Panthers, Will Johnson to the Saints, McMillan to the Bears. So the Bears are just loading up on receivers here. Barron to the Niners. Oh, that's something I wouldn't want to see. There you go. Loveland off the board before Tyler Warren. So he goes to the Cowboys. Membu goes to the Dolphins. Michael Williams to the Colts. Falcons add Tyler Warren, which if they're doing that, I'm assuming Kyle Pitts is leaving the Atlanta area code. Kenneth Grant goes to the Cardinals and Campbell to the Bengals. Okay, guys, so we're on the clock here, and this is what's kind of available to us. So James Pierce, I don't think he's even on Seattle's board. Calvin Banks is here. Nick Emanwari, Mike Green, Donovan Ezeraku is someone I've really fallen in love with for Seattle.
Yeah.
I think he's my favorite edge in the draft because of that productivity.
Yes.
He's not in like this awesome conference right now, playing at Boston College, but still, I'm not going to just shoo away a double-digit sack season. I mean, he's been very productive. Maybe he'll add a little more power to his game, but that speed, I know Seattle has got a type. They prefer speed over power. And Izaraku, I think, could fit that bill. If they go defense, I mean, they could go with him even over Shamar Stewart. Kelvin Banks is somebody that they meaning McShay and Kuiper have both mocked to Seattle. I think he's good, but I don't know about whether he would be just – I feel like whoever drafts him would rather make him a tackle than a guard. So I know Dart's on the board. I think that a game-changing pass rusher could be in the cards for Seattle.
Yeah.
Keeping in mind Maffe's under contract here, so
Mike Green's still there. I just wonder with Mike Green if his off the field is going to take him off the board for Seattle.
Mm-hmm. And then
so
Shamar Stewart's got the traits, but not the stats.
Yeah,
Raku has got stats and traits, but he plays on a weaker conference than Stewart did. And also, like, Stewart also played alongside other, like, Scorton for Texas A&M. He's got other dudes on that line that they had to deal with. So the fact that A&M couldn't even sniff the playoff, what a failure. But I selfishly, if we can't get Donovan Jackson, maybe we can get both Donovan. See if we can get Ezeraku and then Jackson.
Donovan. We'll see how it goes in this one, and then we'll do one with trades in the next one here. But so we'll go with Donovan Ezeraku. We'll draft him here and see how the rest of the board falls to us at 50.
My jaw would hit the floor. It would detach from my face if Ashton Genty went number 4 to the Patriots.
Mine too. Mine 100%. Okay, so Hampton to the Buccaneers, Golden to the Broncos. There you go. Jackson Dart to the Pittsburgh Steelers, which seems like a legitimate thing.
Yeah.
Totally.
Nick Emanwari to the Chargers, Derek Harmon to the Packers. Vikings take Starks. There goes Stewart to the Texans. Azariah Thomas to the Rams. Again, something I don't want to see. Calvin Banks Jr. to the Ravens, Mike Green to the Lions, Gray Zabel, there you go, to the Commanders, Trey Amos. Like, this falls relatively kind of within what I would potentially see happening, minus the Genty part. So there you go. Josh Simmons, Quinn Ewers to the Giants at 2nd round. Josh Connerly Jr. And there you go.
Damn you, Pete.
Mecca Buka goes to the Raiders. Tyler Booker, there you go. 38 to the Patriots. Ravel to the Bears. There you go. Donovan Jackson went to the Saints.
Right.
Freaking Saints. Well, Trey Harris go off the board. Well, to me, then it'd be a no-brainer to at least take Higgins at one of the 2 second-round picks.
I agree. So there you go. Jared Wilson, everyone who loves Jared Wilson. He went 1 pick before us to the Bengals. So let's make a pick here. Let's have a look. So Jaden Higgins is right there at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see what the guard situation is. So 7-Eye is still there. Ratledge is still there. So I would say at this point, I would probably go Ratledge and Higgins. Doesn't matter the order.
Yeah.
But I think I'm going to go Ratledge first just because the Buccaneers are sitting there.
Yeah.
So we'll take Tate Ratledge.
And then Higgins is going to be on it because Tampa Bay's got Kevin Godwin and McMillan. So you take Higgins, then we move on to round 3. It's kind of weird how infrequently.
Who is playing left guard?
Tate Ratledge.
There we go.
All right. So here we go. Just to see how that fell afterwards, after we did that. I misspoke. It was the Broncos, and they took Ursary, Higgins, Swessinger, who's one of my favorite linebackers, off the board of the Buccaneers. Alfred Collins, like Mason Taylor, there you go, went to the Texans. Jalen Royals, Nick Scorton, Jalen Noel, Caleb Johnson, Darian Porter. And so this is where it gets interesting because the corner group falls off. So 3rd round, there you go. 49ers took Tyler Shuck, and Cowboys took Jalen Milroe.
That would
there
be
we go.
Timer of a band. That would be like drama for the rest of the day. ESPN would not even acknowledge our pick for the rest of the night. So it's got to be within the 3rd would just be for kicks. Ty Robinson.
That's the one I'm thinking about right now.
I'm thinking Robinson. Have somebody in the trench because they do need to beef up and have like more interior like. Robinson, I don't think would be a true nose, but he can move him around. I mean, he's played. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I like Ty Robinson too.
All right, so we'll go Ty Robinson here. And we'll get out of that one. Where to go? D tackle. Okay, so we'll take Ty Robinson. Okay, so now that we come back, so there's Ty Robinson. JT's another interesting edge prospect for me. So is Femi. Will Howard, there you go. 3rd round of the Jaguars, which I don't see as a realistic thing because I don't think they're going to take that guy with Trevor Lawrence. Cameron Williams. So the one thing I'll say here is this might be another ideal spot to take another offensive lineman for Sal, because I do think they will take 2 in the top, 100 picks. They were the top 5 picks out of the top 100 they have. So if I look at guard, Dylan Fairchild's an interesting one to me.
Yeah, I mean, they could double up. And Jackson Slater, I think. McLaughlin, I want to, put aside because, of course, he also had a significant injury. So I'd rather Seattle not gamble with that because how many years of drafting have we had, like, somebody have some injury concerns or something, and they took them with their top pick. So I think they could see Slater as somebody we're taking. They don't tend to double up from the same school so quickly.
Yeah.
And Drew Kendall could be a choice for Seattle at center if they so choose a center. They take a running back in the top 100 picks. That's not serious work. I'm wondering about Quincy Riley.
That's who I'm wondering about right now too.
Yeah, they could take. I feel like they're compelled to take a corner in this draft because there's just not a lot of depth there. So hey, it's a mock draft. We do a million of these. We're going to be wrong 99% of the time.
Oh, I know. So let's take Quincy Riley. Let's just see.
But we're just exploring our options, and some of these are eventually going to be right because we're covering so many possibilities.
All right, so let's go with Quincy Riley. See how this shapes up after we take him here. All right, so currently, where are we? Team picks. So Ezra Aku, Ratledge, Jaden Higgins, Ty Robinson, Quincy Riley. So let's take a look now back at the Okay, the big board here. So Kyle Williams is still sitting there.
Mm-hmm. Seems like Slater was taken, or no, he wasn't.
No, it's right there.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's not nothing that Slater said in an interview with Field Goals, Alexandre Castro there, that Seattle was the only team to meet with him twice at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
And they brought him in, he's a local guy, so he was a local visit too. So I think they might take a look at him. I don't know if he'll necessarily be like a 4th rounder, but again, once we get this deep into the draft, like it all just muddles up. So I think that they could take him in with their 4th round selection. If they take a tight end, I feel like they would take a tight end early, like a pass catching tight end, because Jackson Miles wouldn't really fit that bill.
Mitchell Evans kind of fits their style, but again, he to me is like an AJ Barner kind of duplicate.
Yeah.
So that's where I could see them going with like a Brinstool. Jalen Coyers, out of Texas Tech, or Conyers. Yeah. He's someone to me that adds a little bit more in the receiving game. He's the one I would take here, potentially, but I wonder if we can't get him in a couple picks and take Jackson Slater here instead.
Yeah, I think he could take that risk.
All right, let's see if he's still there. And he is still there. So there we'll take our tight end now, Mookie, at pick 5.
And then we also got Luke Lachey, maybe not related to Nick from 98 Degrees, but Jalen Conyers. Boy, I'm really dating myself there, depending on how many people know their 90s boy bands. But yeah, might as well go with Conyers. If you want to feel old, Rondé Gadsden the second, but from the old Miami Dolphins years. But
all right, so we're up again here.
Well, the other Kobe Bryant is available. That's funny.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
LaQuinton Allen. I do think Seattle may take a running back this year.
Yeah. Walker's in a contract year. You got Charbonnet. And look, I know we all like Kenny Mack, but it's not like he is like unbelievably indispensable that he's a lock for this roster. And that same applies to George Alani, last year's free agent darling. So if you got Chase Lunt as another offensive lineman, they might. I think they'll take no more than 3.
I agree. And this is where, for me, when I look at it, like if I look at our picks, so we've got Ratledge and Slater at this point. I think they could take, this is where they may take that tackle, their swing tackle of the potential, or their hedge against maybe even Abe Lucas. Like, so if I look at that, like that's where I think, even though that people are projecting it, to me, guys I like at this point, I like Lund, I like Jack Nelson.
Crenshaw Dixon perhaps as well.
Yeah. I think between the two, I'd probably go with Chase Lund.
Mm-hmm.
He's more.
I know Rob is high on him, and you have that familiarity between him and Haynes.
Yeah. And the scheme itself.
And the scheme, just with UConn scheme. So it would basically mean that the gap is not as huge like it ended up being for Haynes, learning Cuff's blocking style and not being up for the task, but going back to something more familiar with outside zone, I think that could work. So I'd say Chase, we can go for that.
Okay, so we'll take Chase Lund.
We're down to 1-6 and a couple of 7s, right? So it's really just
this is now throwing stuff at the wall and hoping it sticks, or you get some practice squad guys out of it. So we're in the 6th here. Oh yeah, we don't have a 6th, so we're in the 7th actually.
Yeah, that's right. So I forgot that we traded the 6th, so it's the 2 7s.
So let's look at running back. Woody Marks is interesting to me. LaQuinton Jackson out of Arkansas is another interesting guy to me. What does the quarterback room look like right now? Dylan Gabriel, Curtis Rourke.
Not a chance.
Brady Cook, I've heard Emery Hunt talk a lot about him, who will be coming on our show later this week. So we'll have Emery Hunt on, who's a pretty respected, in my opinion, very respected draft analyst and someone that I always look forward to talking to. So we're going to have Emery Hunt on, and he's really high on Brady Cook. I like Brady Cook. I've graded him out in my personal grades for quarterbacks as a 4th to 6th round guy. So I wouldn't mind taking a swing on him in the 7th round.
There's basically be another Magoo.
We're just seeing if we got something.
Yeah, just to see it, because I'm kind of wondering about Leonard and how low he could actually go, but I have zero interest in Dylan Gabriel. So it's like,
Yes.
yeah, he's short like Russell Wilson, and he's very accurate like Russell Wilson, but he has also got none of the Russell Wilson traits, physical traits that made Russell special and what would hold Gabriel back at a professional level.
Okay, so we've gone. The other thing here too is, do we go with a big D tackle? We don't really have one.
Yeah, is Piggy still there just for fun? I mean, just for the hell of it.
No, he is not. But I like Nazir Stackhouse out of Georgia.
Stackhouse and also Elijah Simmons.
Who do you want to go with? I like Stackhouse personally.
I think by just pure name value, and I mean like the quality of the name. Can't go wrong with Stackhouse.
Okay, so we'll go with Stackhouse here. And then we will go with a quarterback, and we'll take Brady Cook here to end it off. What's interesting is this is the first simulator I've seen where they have Riley Leonard with a non-draft grade. So the cool thing here is what they say about your player that you pick. So if you look at Seattle and what we did here, chance of it being available at the next pick was less than 5%.
Mm-hmm.
So Ratledge, chance available at pick 95, next pick 95%. Okay, because we had a pick within a couple. Then you got Jaden Higgins, chance available at next pick was 9%. Ty Robinson was kind of almost 50-50. When we took Quincy Riley, there was a very small chance he was going to be available at the next pick.
Mm-hmm.
Jackson Slater, 50-50. Same kind of thing here. There was a good chance our tight end might be there. To me, this is what gets really interesting is when you can see these projections because ESPN's putting the analytics side into it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one draft down. So I'm going to take a screenshot of this at some point here, and because show you draft. There you go. That's the button I was looking for.
Yeah.
Because I was like, there's got to be a download function so I don't just lose it.
Boy, if that share your draft could also work too. I mean, that
I know, right? It'd be nice if it did. Holy. So give me 1 second here while I fix this and I take the screen pic of it. But what do you think of that draft there, Mookie?
Well, McKeon Silver in the comments says, I don't hate this mock, so that sounds good to me.
That's a positive.
The only thing I would note is that we didn't take an off-ball linebacker, but maybe in the second mock, I think that they would be compelled to take one. Just because I have I don't have a lot of confidence in the depth below Jones and Tyrese Knight. Because Drake Thomas has hardly played. O'Connell's literally never played a regular season snap on defense. And then it's like Josh Ross, and I'm forgetting somebody else, Michael Dow. Basically, practice squad guys are guys who are on special teams. So again, not a great linebacker class. I'm not looking for a starter. I'm just looking for somebody who can, in a pinch, be like an extra linebacker in the rotation. And especially just as a contingency in case something happens to Jones or Knight. And it's relevant to me because of Jones's history with his knee.
Right.
Yeah, so I think it's a good mock. I mean, running back, we ended up not taking a running back, but I'm not losing sleep over that because they have good running backs, at least to me, good running backs on the depth chart already. It would have been nice to get Donovan Jackson, but
yeah,
I think that Seattle really will maybe I'm just projecting, but man, it would be great to get him on board.
It 100% would be. It would be great to have Donovan Jackson because, again, you got that versatility of, hey, if if we have an issue with our tackle position, we can potentially now kick him out and just be searching for another guard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
definitely.
all right, let's get into this again. We'll go back into this and we'll go and we'll see if we can make a trade right off the bat with somebody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what's more likely to happen, or maybe just as likely, is that a lot of the trades that they will make are with the thirds and later. But if they like somebody in that first, second round range, they could trade down or they could trade up.
Yeah, very true. Oh, I shared that incorrectly. Give me 1 second here.
I find that ESPN's big board is a little bit more sensible than the PFF one. The PFF one is like, I don't know.
PFS is just all over the place. So I see that Rockman Drums is asking for us to throw up the draft. We will throw it up again right after we do this. We'll compare the two with you guys, and you guys can tell us which one you like better. This one will have trades in it, everyone. So let's see what happens. Okay, let's see how crazy this draft went this time. So Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, the top three, I think, are the top three. These are the three guys I think will be off the board.
Mm-hmm.
This makes more sense to the Patriots taking Will Campbell. Jaguars go Membu. Mason Graham to the Raiders is not out of the question for me.
There's no way that Genty is going to the. I mean, what's the point of taking Breece Hall? I mean, but Jalen Walker, Shedeur to the same again because of the car thing. I mean, that's
Will Johnson. The Bears makes some sense. They need some help on that defense. Barron again, Tyler Warren to the Cowboys. Dolphins get Calvin Banks, Michael Williams, Shamar Stewart, Tet McMillan, Mike Green. Okay, so we're on the board here, and I think we're going to try and trade with the Steelers.
Yeah. Would Loveland still be on the board at 21? I think he would be because Tampa Bay doesn't really need a tight end.
The Broncos maybe take him, but I don't.
Might take him, but I mean, they just signed Evan Ingram, so.
Okay. So 18 to 21, and they need to throw in 123. Seems like a fair trade at that point.
They get an additional fourth.
Yeah. Okay, Steelers accept the trade. All right, so Loveland is still on the board, Mookie. You were right.
Welcome to Seattle, Colston Loveland.
Yeah.
We have been searching for a franchise tight end for so long.
So we're going to take Loveland here. All right, so now we're at pick 50 here. Okay, so let's see who's gone off the board after we took Loveland. So Steelers came up and didn't even take Dart. They took Golden, so just add to Pickens and Metcalf there. Emin Warrior went there. Malachi Starks, Campbell, Walter Nolan, Kenneth Grant, Trey Amos, Donovan Ezeraku to the Lions. Oh, that's a scary tandem there. Yeah. Hutchinson and Ezeraku on the same D-line. And Buka and Gray Zabel went to the Eagles. Well, that's just dandy.
Yeah, the one thing that the Eagles needed is another offensive lineman, and then Jackson goes to Atlanta. I was getting my hopes up when I didn't see him at 45, and then Atlanta tapped it.
Yeah.
Well, let's see what's there at 50.
Okay, let's make our pick. So Travion Henderson, Jaden Higgins. Let's see what's at our O line. So O tackle. Sorry, I'm going to go to QB. O tackle.
I would stay away from Cam Williams.
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere near that. This is, again, the O tackle's really gone off, so let's look at guard center.
Mm-hmm.
So Savin Eyes here, Jared Wilson, Mbu, Tate Ratledge. This is where it gets interesting.
There's something I think Mbu could possibly be a Seahawks target. He's somebody who could be a sneaky good pick.
So let's look at this and think realistically at 50, let's take Jaden Higgins.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens if we take him first, and let's see how it falls afterwards, because I think he's someone that fits exactly what Seattle wants to do. So we'll take Higgins again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now here we are, and 7-I went off the board right to the Broncos. Okay. So let's go with Marcus Mbu right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now I want to look at a position group a little bit. So we've got Quincy Riley again at corner, and then basically if you don't take a corner at 50 or 52, it's a drop. It's a steep cliff.
Yep.
So what do you think here?
Well, could they look at D tackle or edge? Like Oladejo, for example. Of UCLA. And then there's Josiah Stewart only because of the connections McDonald has with Michigan. I don't think he was there when McDonald was the defense.
No, but he didn't test very well the other day. Like that was
he didn't, and he's not fast. So that's a problem. But I
would say it's either Femi here or Braden Swinson.
Yeah, I think either way might work. And then Jack Sawyer, I think, is like a good hustle player, but I'm not sure at an NFL level. I think JT has got a better NFL projection than Sawyer does. So let's go with Femi and see if who's still on the board at 92.
Yeah, let's have a look here. Okay. So let's see if there's anything
Thank you,
changed.
Brendan. Double up on the Olu.
All right, so Jacoby Parrish is there. Kobe Bryant's there, which I know a lot of people would like. Let's look at tight end again just to see who's there.
Ferguson.
Okay, no one worth it.
They don't need to double up on tight end when they already got they got Saubert and Fant and what's his name and Barner on the roster. Even if they deal Fant, I don't think they're going to invest that heavy there.
That's true. So,
yeah, Paul
linebacker, not third round. D tackle. Nobody I'm looking at that I'm. What about a quarterback?
Yeah.
So Cal McCord's still there.
Everybody, yeah. And I don't think McCord's going in the third. So that leaves you with Shuck. And we just said earlier,
we're not taking Shuck.
Yeah. So
Jalen Reed's there from Penn State. He's an interesting safety.
I like Bowman as well. I mean, I can see as good as Kobe has played, like after him, DeAnthony Bell's like a special teamer / big nickel. So again, you always want to hedge there unless they extend Kobe by the time we're done recording this. I can see them taking a safety like in the first few rounds.
Okay, so let's look here. Here's our line on the interior again. Miles Frazier's still there from LSU.
Yeah.
Jackson Slater.
Could change things up and take well, we're still in the third. Otherwise, I would have said maybe Fairchild might be there at 121 with the extra pick we got.
True. What do you want to go with here? Where do you want to attack, Mookie? What side of the ball?
I would still like to improve the offensive side of the ball. So who will be picked so far? I'm trying to remember just from.
Okay, so the team picks so far: Loveland, Higgins, Mbu, and Femi. We've only had one defensive player picked.
Okay, so let's see if they go defense again. I think they'll go for safety.
Okay, so let's look at safety. I think Jalen Reed's the pick.
Okay, let's see it. Trying to remember the last Penn State guy they actually took.
Oh, that's a fair point. Yeah. All right. So looking at how this has gone now, Savion Williams, did he not have a visit to Seattle?
He did. He's kind of like this receiver running back hybrid of sorts.
That's where I wonder if they don't bring him in just because of his
Yeah.
Okay, D tackle. Let's have a look here. So one guy I thought about, but he's not here anymore, is Ty Robinson. He's off the board. Edge. Oh man, that edge class just falls off a cliff at that point. Do we take another receiver here?
Yeah, they could. And then Restrepo might have redeemed himself with as soon as we found out that he was running with a bad ankle. But I'm a Restrepo fan. I think he could be something in the NFL.
I just like the versatility of Williams because I think you can use him as a kick returner too.
Yeah.
And you can get him different touches in different ways.
Yeah, definitely. So we could give it a shot. I am very wary of TCU receivers and some of the stats they put up in college and not translating to the NFL.
Very true.
In the interest of not scouting the helmets, I mean, we can always include somebody whom Seattle has met with in a 30 visit.
Yeah.
Because the odds are at least one or two of those players will be picked by Seattle.
Okay. Do we do that or do we do Jackson Slater?
Well, we got a couple of forts, right? So
we have this one. Where is our? Hold on. Let's have a look here. Let's make sure. So before we make a pick, so we're here we got 123 and 137.
So this is 123 is the one that Pittsburgh gave. So yeah, I think that Slater could still be there at 137.
Okay, so let's take Savion Williams then. Yeah. We'll add to our receiving core one more time because, like you said earlier in the show, there's not a lot of guys under contract after this season. All right, let's see if he lasted.
I guess so.
He did.
Guess what? You're a Seahawk, Jackson. Even in this.
I'm really liking this draft so far.
Yeah.
If this somehow fell the way for Seattle, I would be very okay with it so far. Okay, so now we're here at pick 5.
Could they take Cody Simon as a linebacker?
That's what I was wondering as well. I think they could take a linebacker.
Yeah, I feel like day 3 might be a good linebacker range, especially with the lack of great. Again, on paper, we could be very, very wrong, but the lack of top names. Also, Kaiser and Lindenberg could also be on.
Yeah, they could both be guys. All right, who do you think here? Do you like Simon better as a fit, or Jack Kaiser or Lindenberg?
Yeah, we got to watch it with our history of linebackers named Cody. So I think I'll go with Cody Simon.
Okay, we'll go with Cody Simon. We'll get a linebacker in here to back up Knight and Jones.
Yeah, and also we shan't we shall not keep dumping on Cody Barton, who just got a 3-year contract with Tennessee. After a nice player and nice year in Denver. We're at 175. So we done one trade. So I'm wondering if there could be some like one more trade at the bottom there.
Yeah, do you want to look at a trade maybe?
Yeah.
Let's
basically do one more to satisfy our
Yeah, I saw the comment in there going so many trades, LOL, or not many trades.
Because if we do that, we'll be here at like 11 o'clock. So
yeah. So let's have a look here. Let's see. Who do we want to trade with? I'm just trying to think.
Yeah, you don't have a 6, so maybe trading into the 6th.
Yeah, let's trade in the 6 here. So let's make a trade. And let's trade with let's go with the Chargers. And we'll take their, what would that be? 181.
Mm-hmm.
And what should we give them? Something from next year?
175, obviously.
Yeah. And then what? Just our round 6 for next year?
I don't know.
I think it might go just the way it is.
Yeah, it might be fine. Just that late.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect. I was gonna give them some extra, but okay. So now we're into this round. I know a lot of people are hammering the table for Kobe Bryant.
Yes, we read the comments.
Yeah, we do.
Yes, I'd be totally on board with Kobe's Bryant.
Kobe's Bryant.
We didn't get Byron's Murphy. We get Kobe's Bryant, and a lot cheaper too.
Yeah, that's fair. Let's look at swing tackle. We haven't addressed swing tackle.
Mm-hmm.
So, Holland Pierce. Oh man, like this is a rough looking group.
Yeah, I think Crenshaw Dixon would be there in the 7th. So I would just pick Kobe and then see what falls in the 7th with our last 2 picks.
Let's have a look here. I see what MWN. He goes, Bryce just gave out the better pick just to make a trade. I'm appeasing the listeners. Everyone wanted a trade, so I made a trade. I think running back makes sense here. LaQuinton Allen would be someone I'd be interested in.
Yeah, if you could go for a running back in day 3, I don't think anybody would be upset. I'd be very, very pissed if they did in day 1 or 2.
All right, let's take LaQuinton Allen here.
If you think that starting running backs are quite replaceable, 3rd string running backs are extremely replaceable.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, so far with what we've done,
Kobe went 5 picks. Okay, that's incredible. Kobe almost went the 7th. I don't think he'll drop that far.
No, he will not drop that far. Let's take a look here at D tackle, and because in this draft, I don't think we've actually properly addressed that, and we haven't.
Yeah.
So, who do you want to take this time? Do you want to take Nazir Stackhouse again? Who do you want to take?
I vouched for Simmons last time, so let's take Simmons this time.
Okay.
Tonka Hemingway, another phenomenal name.
Yeah, Tonka Hemingway has a phenomenal name. Okay, so last pick here. What's our edge group? Nothing to write home about.
One more linebacker because Lindenberg's still on the board.
True.
Or because it doesn't look like they're and Jabbar Muhammad. I like Jabbar at UW. I don't know.
I really did too. He was really good.
Yes, and then he puts on the Ducks uniform.
Yeah. Let's see here. Okay. Do we take a swing on Jake Majors?
Let's see, sir. Yeah, then they might just take one more. That would max us out at 3 offensive linemen, right? So
I believe it would. Let's see. Hold on. Embu, Slater, yeah, it would. So let's take Jake Majors at a center into this conversation because I know a lot of people are worried about that spot. So,
Yep. And congratulations to Serena Sundell, by the way, who got drafted by the WNBA Seattle
She
Storm, and
did.
is the sister of Seahawks center, jack of all trades offensive lineman Jalen Sundell. So that's pretty cool.
All right. So this draft, Loveland likelihood of actually being there is 10%.
I will take those chances. So you're saying there's a chance that's higher than Mega Millions.
Yeah, that's true. Jaden Higgins
Higgins.
again. So again, with Marcus Embo, there wasn't much of a chance he may have been there, but it wasn't very high. Same with Femi. Jalen Reed, again, just over 50% that he'd be available. Same with Savion, not likely. Jackson Slater, again. So like when you look at this, like a lot of the guys we picked, there wasn't like Elijah Simmons, yeah, there was a good chance it was a 7th round throw. I'm sorry, I got to throw this one up there. Dogzilla Monster, you fools. Where was Desmond Watson?
I don't think he was on the board.
I didn't see him actually on the board, Dogzilla. If he was, I would have humored you and taken him. I promise.
Yeah, obviously that means he's a priority UDFA.
So, anyhow, the way it looks, to me, honestly, like if Seattle ended up with that kind of a haul coming out of this class, I would be okay with that.
Yeah, and for our readers, because this also goes up on field goals, I will put these mock draft results also up on the show post and field goals. So don't worry about that. We got plenty of mocks that we're still going to do. And I think you and Ryan have got another mock coming up soon. Ryan had to leave incidentally.
Yeah, Ryan did have to hold out of here, everyone. So
it was just going to be like the two of us finishing up the mock draft. Ryan shall return later in the week.
But yeah, so that's gonna kind of wrap up tonight's show, everyone. If you got any more questions, we'll stick around for a couple more minutes here. If you got any more questions or things you want answered, but yeah, honestly, like when I look at the way those drafts worked without trades and then with the trades, there is a lot of sense for Seattle to move back if they can, depending on how that board initially falls to them.
Mm-hmm. What I don't want them to do is move back and then take LJ Collier 2.0. Because what's gotten them into trouble when they trade back is trading back and not really taking best player available at that specific pick. So, Bryce, you're going to have to explain why you hate Kobe Bryant so much, the Kansas one.
Apparently, yeah, I hate Kobe Bryant because I wouldn't take him in the draft.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, if John Gilbert's Kansas alum, our field goal deputy editor is here, he'd have taken Kobe probably with the first pick.
Oh, 100%. I totally agree with you.
Like John more than anything. But yeah, I think anyway, yeah. If you're going to trade down, don't like overcomplicate it and then just panic pick somebody who for need, which is what they've had issues with in the past. But man, again, I'm not thinking about Super Bowl aspirations or anything. I'm thinking about building this roster for sustained success. And this is not like one of the greatest drafts we'll ever see. In theory, but there's a lot of value to be had here as far as like getting depth and finding potential replacement starters or just finding potential starters right now.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I've got a few questions that have come in here. Brandon Myers asked, did you guys watch the Masters? I did watch the final round of the Masters, and my guy Bryson DeChambeau fell apart. I was happy to see Rory win. I really was, because I've watched Rory's career for a long time, and I was really excited to see him finally be able to cement the career Grand Slam. But yeah, no, watching DeChambeau kind of fall apart in the Masters was kind of disappointing for me, because I really like watching him, and even Jordan Spieth, I enjoy watching him as well. So yeah, no, I did watch the final round there, Brandon. And then we've got here's one from Ian. He goes, Bryce Mookie, would you be surprised if a tight end gets selected in pick 18? I wouldn't. If Colson Loveland's there, I could see it happening. I really could.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they took a pass catcher, which means Egbuka at 18. I don't think they're going to take Matthew Golden. But if they take Egbuka at 18, if they take Tyler Warren, if he somehow falls to 18, maybe he's got a photo with a gas mask like Laramie Tunsil years ago that drops his stock just enough to get him to 18. But if not him, then Loveland. Like, of course, Loveland can block, and he soldiered through an injury last year, and he was still very productive despite Michigan having a slew of quarterbacks that could not throw a forward pass very well. So I think that Loveland could be that difference maker at tight end that Seattle hasn't had pretty much since pre-knee injury Jimmy Graham and then like 2016 Jimmy Graham. So yeah, I think that they can absolutely take a tight end. Personally, I would rather they build this offense than build the defense in the draft. If you gave me 10 picks, I would rather they focus on high-end talent on offense than defense. You still win with offense. I trust McDonald to improve upon this defense so it can be a top 10 unit. But this offense still needs a little bit more talent, especially considering who was outgoing.
So here's another good one from I'd rather be flying an X-Wing. Really appreciate you being in the chat here, man. Bryce, do you think Schneider will wait all the way from 18 to 50 or trade back up? Oh, I got a feeling he's going to want to close that gap a bit personally. That's a long time to wait unless they traded back from 18 to somewhere in the 20s. But I got a feeling if they stick and pick at 18, he's going to try and move up somewhere into the late 30s. Early 40s area to try and get, I think, maybe a Donovan Jackson or one of these linemen. Potentially they don't take them in that first round, somebody in that area, because I don't think he's going to want to sit on his hands and watch guys just come flying off the board.
Well, he was willing to wait from 16 all the way to 81 last year. So it's going to depend on if there's somebody that they really like in the early portion of the second, whom they do not believe will be available at 50, then I can see them trading up. Or if they trade down from 18 to take somebody that they're really comfortable with, and that the gap is smaller from like 29 to 50, of course. But I can see that there are a wide variety of outcomes that are obvious. But 18 to 50, I wouldn't be surprised if he just waits.
He very well might wait. And this is an interesting one. The Surge, hello from Philly. Like your show. Well, thank you, Surge. Appreciate Philadelphia Eagle fan, I guess, coming in and chiming in. Appreciate that. And then we've got one here, Mookie, giving you some props. MWN, Mookie is smarter than Rob Staten at not picking Arroyo or Taylor with the Hawks' first pick.
Well, I don't think Rob was picking either one of them with the first pick. I think he might have them in the second round. So absolutely. Rob is much more knowledgeable about the ins and outs of the draft prospects than I am. But I think that if they take Arroyo or Taylor, then it would be a second round pick. So, failing to get Loveland, they can get Taylor or Arroyo with one of 50 or 52. Really, the area of the draft to focus on the most for Seattle, I think, is that 50 to 52 range, because notice they didn't trade when they had 40 and 41 in 2022. They stuck there and picked back to back. This year, I could see them making some sort of trade and packaging one of 50 or 52 to move up.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that, Mookie, 100%. Well, that's going to wrap it up for tonight, guys. Appreciate everybody, the 1,000 of you that are watching, whether it's on my Twitter or on Hawks Zone Rundown's YouTube channel, guys. Make sure, again, you guys like and subscribe to the show. The more viewers and stuff, the more guests we can bring on and keep giving you guys this great content that we're trying to produce. And again, if you want to find our stuff, it's over on Field Goals with Mookie Alexander and the crew over there that are pumping out articles constantly that I find myself, clicking through notifications all the time because I'm reading all the articles from everybody. So, Mookie, anything kind of coming up of significance or Field Goals in the near future here?
Yes, on Friday, there's going to be an NFL draft media call with Daniel Jeremiah, and I will be on it representing Field Goal. The last time I did this was before the Combine, and I was the only Seahawks writer on there out of 170 people on the call. So we'll see if this happens again later this week, but hopefully I can get one or two questions in. Last time with the Combine, Jeremiah said Tyler Shuck could be an option for Seattle, but that was before Geno got traded and before they signed Donald. So I got to stay away from the quarterback question this time and ask him something else. Always good to pick the brains of the people who've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, no, really looking forward to what you get out of that conversation there, Mookie. And then over here, guys, on the Hawks Zone Rundown, we have Emery Hunt coming on, draft analyst. He'll be on Friday, so that show will be out over the weekend for you guys to kind of get caught up on. And we'll also be providing two more, guys, of our draft fits for the Seahawks. We're going to be looking at defensive backs and receivers and linebackers and tight ends. That's going to be the next grouping that we're going to kind of take a look at in the coming weeks here. So we'll get that out to you guys before the end of this week. And then draft day, round one, guys, we are going to be doing a live draft party show here, as well as on Seahawks Forever with Dan Viens. Myself, Ryan, Dan, and Michael Thompson will be joining on, and we will be going and watching this draft live with you guys, commenting on the picks, seeing what Seattle does. We'll potentially have Mookie come by and pop onto the show if he's got the time and he isn't too busy. So those are kind of the things that will be coming up, guys, in the near future here. So make sure you guys have that notification button clicked. And yeah, let's end with a Go Hawks here, Mookie.
Go Hawks and good night, everybody.
Go Hawks and good night. See you guys next time.